Hi, I'm August. Welcome to the show where we explore ideas in the future. My guest today is Daniel Frohlich. Daniel was the very first intern at SpaceX when the company was first starting out. He then worked his way up to be a lead structures engineer on the Dragon team. We're going to talk with Daniel today about what it's like to work at SpaceX and what he sees as the future of space exploration. Let's dig in. Daniel, it's great to have you on the show. So you were the first intern at SpaceX. How did that happen, and what was the company like at that point?
This was in December 2002, and I was studying in South Africa at the university in Johannesburg, and I had to do a internship. They call it vacation work there. Mm-hmm. And basically one of my good friends had just moved to Southern California.
Okay.
And I knew that all the aerospace industry is there, so I figured I'll come and see what I can find. And I was a completely naive 20-year-old. I thought I'll just come here and, walk from his house to Raytheon or Northrop or Boeing or Lockheed and just walk in the door.
So no appointments?
No, nothing. So
nothing scheduled?
No, so I went and and firstly I realized that Irvine is very far from El Segundo, which is where
right,
all
and of course LA,
is.
The most spread out city.
So I couldn't really ride a bicycle to get everywhere, but then I just walked around in mainly in El Segundo.
Is that where there's a concentration of aerospace?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
And I went to a recruitment center, and I think I just stumbled across a guy there who told me about this startup company.
So again, you showed up with no appointment and talking to people and hey, there's a startup company.
Yeah, I literally walked into Boeing and I said, hey, I could be an intern, and they laughed at me and they said there's a whole process that I have to go through.
But when they talked about the startup company, that was SpaceX?
Yeah. So I went there, and they said to me, you sound just like our boss. You should speak to our boss.
Oh, sir. So the South African accent, it was the
one of
the recruiters.
Yeah, one of the guys. They not even recruiters. They didn't even have recruiters then. But like one of the guys.
You sound like our boss.
Yeah. So then he called over Elon, and Elon was like, yeah.
Oh, literally. So he called Elon over directly. Like,
yeah, and he said,
you got to hear this guy.
We could use the help. Sure, it sounds good. So I started working there. No discussion of salary or anything like that. I was just super excited.
Show up tomorrow.
I was just excited to work at a place.
Did you start working the day you were there?
No. I think I started a few days after.
Come over in a few days.
Yeah.
And so, how big was the company? What was it like culturally there? Because nobody had heard of SpaceX at this point, even you.
No, and that's a lucky thing. There was, I think, 15 people or 16 people, and I was catching a ride every morning with with some of the guys there that ended up being the vice presidents of the company, and just catching the company Hummer in the morning to work.
Did you immediately sense there was something unique about this group of people or about this mission?
I mean, what they were trying to do is kind of like
how many people are trying to do that?
Unheard of, right? Yeah.
And at that point, was it we want to colonize Mars, or what was the talk of the objective of the company?
I actually don't really remember too much about that in the beginning. I think I was working so much all the time.
We're going to make rockets and shoot them into space.
I was just cutting and stripping and crimping thousands of wires every day and setting up.
You're like working on electronics.
Setting up tables and coffee machines and
everything.
And, like building the test stand for one of the rocket motors in the early days.
Mm-hmm. And so you were there for a few months for the internship, I presume?
I was there for 6 weeks. My internship was 6 weeks, yeah.
And then what happened after that?
So at the end of the internship...
Because you had a long career there, so how did the internship turn into?
Yeah, so I had 2 more years to finish up my university in South Africa. And I was lucky enough to get offered by Elon a sponsorship to study at USC.
So you said, I'm going to make the school thing happen at USC.
Yeah, I think a couple of the guys that were working there at the time, or one guy in particular that I'm thinking of, was studying at USC or just finished from USC, and then Elon, I guess he was feeling charitable, and he said...
he saw something in you, I don't know.
Yeah, so he said, come and finish off at USC and then come work here when you're done. And that was obviously an amazing offer that I couldn't refuse.
Fantastic.
Although at the time I didn't really know who he was, and no one really knew who he was. So
it was before Elon was Elon, right?
Yeah, I told my mom about this, and she was
like, yeah.
"Who's this guy? I've never heard of him. I don't know if he can really afford it."
Right. Did she do some digging?
She did.
For real?
Of course, yeah, she did. And then
You passed the test?
And then she was reassured, yeah, he can afford.
He passed the mom test.
Yeah, he passed my mom test.
So how did you end up back then at SpaceX?
So I finished off my third year and fourth year studying aerospace engineering at USC. And then after that, I tried to find a job in the industry, but I wasn't able to because to get a job in the aerospace industry, you need to be a US resident at least, if not a citizen.
Was that a problem going? You didn't go directly back to SpaceX because of that?
Exactly.
Okay.
So I tried and I wasn't able to. It was a catch-22 situation.
Guys, you already know each other. What's the problem?
Yeah, you see, it's a catch-22 situation because you got to have a green card to work there.
Right.
And you got to. You can be sponsored for a green card, but you need to be working in order to get sponsored.
Okay.
So it's really impossible to get in there. So I had to.
Right.
I tried, it wasn't able to. I wanted to continue my studies anyway, so I went and did 2 more years, did my master's in astronautical at USC.
Okay, so then you went back for the
Yeah,
graduate
and then
degree,
after that I
which
tried
only makes
again.
you more viable for these kinds of positions.
Yeah, I mean...
So you were building still in that very clear direction.
Yeah. In terms of being more viable for that position, I learned a lot, but at the same time, I imagine if I had 2 more years working there in the early days, I probably...
Yeah,
it's a tough one,
hurt
you know? Either. But I wasn't able to, so I did two
but you
more
found your way
years
back.
Yeah.
And so
yeah.
presumably you got a green card and then...
Yeah, I found another company that sponsored me for a green card.
Okay, so you got that taken care of. Then you're back at SpaceX. And now what happens when you're back at SpaceX? First of all, how has the company changed in the few years since you've been there?
Wow, well, when I interned, there was like 15 people. When I came back, there was 615 people.
How did that happen? 600 from 16.
Yeah.
Wow.
And I mean, it was amazing. They moved from the small little building in El Segundo to this massive factory in Hawthorne.
Okay.
And I started working on Dragon, the capsule.
The Dragon is the capsule that Falcon launches.
Exactly.
So Falcon's the rocket that propels Dragon, which is what actually connects to the space station.
Exactly.
Okay.
So Dragon's the capsule that takes cargo to and from the space station.
And so you were on the Dragon team, as I understand.
Yeah. So I was
the Falcon team and a Dragon team?
Yeah, exactly. So I was the first manufacturing engineer in the structures team.
Huh.
So that was basically just getting it done. The design was just wrapping up and they needed to get the parts made.
Wow.
So my first task was just get these parts made on schedule. And
was it just extremely demanding? Was it kind of laid back? What was the atmosphere?
It was extremely demanding.
Well, you'd think the margin for error was pretty small.
Yeah, it was very demanding, but it was so fun. I didn't, working like a machine there, but it's just...
So the expectations are extremely...
I mean, for me, this is something I'd really dreamed of doing. I mean, I was working on getting parts made. I was going to Cape Canaveral and working there on the capsule in a clean room, going to the launch pad. I mean, these are things that I only dreamed about.
That's extraordinary.
It was like going to space camp.
Wow. I mean, but except that you're actually making history.
Yeah, and I was getting paid.
Wow.
It was just unreal.
Was there some sense of rivalry between the different teams, or was there sort of a really unified sense of we're doing something together?
100% just doing something together.
Did you have a sense, and did the others seem to have a sense of this being a historical thing you were working on?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, everyone for sure felt that it's an epic thing to be working on.
I can imagine. So tell me about the culture. I mean, what is the environment like? What are the people like? Because it's known for recruiting a very elite caliber of person.
It's an incredible place to work. There's a great sense of connectedness between everyone. Everyone's got the same goal in mind. Everyone's working super hard to deliver a product successfully. It's amazing when it all culminates in launch day and you actually watch something that you've poured months and months of hard work into actually work. So it's just an unbelievable vibe. Everyone works really hard. There's a really high quality of people there. Everyone is motivated and ambitious and energetic, and it's awesome.
When you first came back, what was the first milestone? Like, had they done rocket launches before you came back? Were they starting to launch?
Did a couple of Falcon launches, but never launched a Dragon before.
Okay, so you were there for the first Dragon launch?
Yeah, and I was actually there for the first Falcon 9 launch. That's right.
Okay.
Yeah. So they launched Falcon 1.
But the first one, there were a couple of failures, right?
Yeah.
And then a successful one.
Yeah, there was a couple of Falcon 1 launches, so just the baby rocket.
Were you there for the
I got there just in
misfires?
time for the first Falcon 9 launch.
The first successful one?
Yeah.
Okay, but you were not there for the first
No,
failed ones.
no.
That must have been traumatic. I can only imagine.
Yeah, I'm sure it was, but what's interesting is I when I started working there, I thought that the more you launch, the easier it would get.
I would
and
assume that.
And it's actually kind of, at least for me, it was the opposite because in the beginning you kind of think, well, this thing's so complex, it's odds are it might blow up, you know, or it wouldn't be that unbelievable if it blew up,
yeah.
you know. So then when it does, it's obviously crushing, but you think, oh well, it was a really hard thing that we're trying to do, and then it's successful, and you've proven, the technology works, the engineering is sound, it's doable, and now it's just on like, well, can you do it repeatedly?
Right.
Was there anything that you missed? Is it
Right.
like a robust design? So I actually found that like every subsequent launch, maybe especially because I worked in production,
Okay.
which was responsible for taking the engineering and making sure that you could build it repeatedly and without any errors and all of that.
And that it was reusable? Was that a part of your...
Towards the end of my career, reusability became a thing.
Okay.
But yeah, in the beginning we weren't
Just
weren't
get it
quite-
up there.
Yeah.
So you were there for the first successful launch.
Yeah.
What was the atmosphere like when that happened? I mean, because in theory, you know it's going to work. You think it's going to work, but I mean, theory and practice.
Yeah, I mean, just an unbelievable sigh of relief and great parties. SpaceX definitely throws some good parties.
I'll bet. Yeah,
especially
after the first
I
successful
think especially
launch.
back in early days when it's a smaller crowd and you go
Yeah.
to some of the parties and see Elon, see Gwyn, see a lot of the.
So at this point, do you still have access to Elon? I mean, you were used to being in the same 15-person office. Now at 600 people, I imagine there's a lot more hierarchy.
Not so much hierarchy. I mean, I guess there were more levels. I never really felt as though that
Interesting.
got in the way of going to talk to him. He's got an open plan office and anyone can really just go talk to him. But I mean, he's obviously more like a bigger deal now than back in the day. Yeah, I never really felt too much as though I couldn't go chat to him. So I went and spoke freely to him a few times. And
So at some point, you moved from the production team to the design analysis team. What's the difference, and what happened when you moved into this new?
The production team, the manufacturing engineering team, which is the team that I worked in, is responsible for taking all the engineering designs and then making sure that the parts get fabricated properly and assembled properly and integrated properly and all of that. And then the engineering design and analysis team, those are the ones that are, designing the new parts and then handing them off to the production team
So it's a little more
to fabricate.
Creative in the design and analysis team.
For sure. So really the design wasn't changing that much in the beginning while I was working on it, and then towards the end there was a real kick for reusability, and that drove some redesigns that were required.
So there was a point at which that became a bigger emphasis than it had been previously.
Yeah. I mean,
there's always what I've heard from Elon is that was what would make economics was like the key to space exploration, and that reusability was key to the economics working.
Yeah, so it was designed to be reusable from the beginning, except there's some aspects of it that didn't fully get all the attention they deserved because it was just a rush to get it up into space.
It's a big enough challenge just to get it up.
Yeah, so the big thing was that it was splashing down in the ocean and the service section was filling up with water. Not the pressurized section, that never filled up with water, but the service section got full of water.
In ocean salt water.
And so there was a push to redesign it so that water would not ingress into the service section.
Oh, okay, the functional.
Yeah, so there was some redesign required, and that was an opportunity for me to go and work on that. So that was the next thing that I ended up working on, figuring out how to close out the holes.
Did they underestimate the level of damage the salt would do, or they just didn't figure that part initially needed to be reusable?
The latter, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Although, personally, I was surprised at the damage that's caused by salt.
So we know salt is destructive, but you'd think a splash, you pull it out. not the case, at least not for spacecraft.
Yeah. Yeah.
So when you're working for years and years in this really unique environment, focused on launching, objects, machines into space, you must be thinking about the future of exploration, and you must be talking about that with your colleagues, I would assume.
Mm-hmm.
Did you have a lot of philosophical discussions with your colleagues, or was it just very practical? Is there a sense of awe at space, like a Carl Sagan-like wonder?
There certainly is. I don't think I ever got too much into the philosophical side of it. If maybe you're referring to like going and populating another planet.
The futurist stuff wasn't constantly?
It very much is for everyone that works there.
Okay.
For me, going and exploring Mars is cool, but
You'd rather just visit.
I wouldn't go there.
Holiday.
Yeah.
So what's your take on the future of space exploration then? Like, let's look 10 years out. What's realistically viable?
There's a ton happening. There is so much happening. There's a lot of other companies that are doing exciting stuff. Virgin Galactic, Blue Origin, Maston. There's a lot of companies that are doing really cool
But it
things.
seems SpaceX is significantly ahead. Are these guys competitive?
Well, SpaceX is definitely ahead.
It also seems that further ahead gives you an advantage to pull away.
Yeah, I think competition is good. SpaceX is ahead, for sure, in my opinion. But there's a lot of things happening other than reusable spacecraft and getting payloads into orbit. There's this X Prize to get something onto the surface of the moon.
Okay.
Right, like a private.
Is SpaceX involved in competing for that?
Not for competing for it, but I think they might be launching one of the spacecraft from one of the teams.
Okay, so supporting.
Yeah.
As
enabling them to get there. Yeah.
Right.
So that's going to be exciting to see a lot of these like privately developed spacecraft on the surface of the moon.
Would you see like Virgin and these other
videos
companies and Jeff Bezos' company, are they realistically attacking this? I know that they talk like this is going to happen, but I don't hear the breakthroughs from these guys that I keep hearing from SpaceX.
I think they are doing a lot of cool stuff.
Are they? Okay, I'm just not.
Maybe you don't hear about them at the same rate, but they are.
Okay.
They're
Good.
doing a lot of cool things.
Yeah, I know there was a little Twitter rivalry between Bezos and Elon.
Yeah, there's
kind of fun.
Pretty big rivalry, which definitely makes things fun.
That's cool. So then 10 years out, what's happening? Are we putting a person on Mars in 10 years? Bigger space station with more people? Or what happens in 10 years?
I can see people getting to Mars. I can see...
In 10 years?
Yeah, maybe 10,
okay,
15 years.
But it's conceivable.
I think if Elon and SpaceX, put that as a plan, for sure they'll get there.
That is his stated objective, as
far
as I know.
Yeah, absolutely.
He seems to be a pretty determined guy.
And they'll get there, yeah. There's definitely a concerted effort to get there.
So that makes this a pretty remarkable decade then. That's a major milestone in humanity.
Oh, yeah. Seeing that happen will be incredible. I think like seeing more space stations being built up. There's like the Bigelow's inflatable space module.
Are these planned for deployment?
Yeah, the Dragon spacecraft has taken up an inflatable section as a test article for Bigelow's inflatable.
Interesting.
Space
and what would
station.
happen in an inflatable space station? Like, what would be the objective of that kind of space structure?
I think he's talking about turning it into a hotel.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
For real?
Yeah, but you could also just use it as an extension of the space station and do more science and experiments in there.
Okay, so it's good. It's capable of housing people and conducting research from it.
Yeah, that's what it's designed for.
Wow.
So that'll be really cool to see that happen and more Earth observing satellites get up there as the cost of access to space goes down. So there's so much happening.
It's
really awesome.
And then looking 20, 30 years out, what's the next phase? Let's say we do succeed at getting in 15 years, say we land 1 or 2 people on Mars. What's the next phase after that?
Get 1 million people.
So the colonization begins?
I think so, yeah.
That does seem to be the stated objective. But that doesn't excite you as much as just getting there and seeing it.
I think the part that excites me is going there and exploring it. Well, not necessarily with 1 million humans going there, but robots going there and satellites going there and sending back better pictures and videos,
the deeper research,
and sending robots there and starting to build up a base there. That's awesome, exciting stuff. But
that's amazing. So what's the biggest obstacle to doing that? What's the hardest part?
I mean, I think it's just so far away.
Distance.
Distance and
If it were just closer.
communicating. I mean, I think it takes. I can't remember now. What's it like? 16 minutes for a signal to get from here to there.
So that's the closest planet.
Yeah. So that's a bit of a challenge. To me, the moon is exciting.
Okay, well, tell me about the moon.
Yeah.
You had opened my eyes to a lot of activity that may be picking up on the moon. So what's more exciting about the moon, first of all, and what can you see happening in the next 10, 15 years in terms of moon exploration?
Well, I guess to me, the thing that's exciting about the moon is it's right there and you can see it, as opposed to
So it
Mars,
captures
which
your
is-
imagination more?
I think so. I think
Okay.
it's cool to
It's
be able to look up there and say, oh, there's a robot up there, or there's people up there, or they're playing Super Bowl up there, or something. I don't know.
It's definitely less abstract.
Yeah. So I understand going to Mars because it's a planet that you could terraform as opposed to the moon, which doesn't have the gravity to sustain building up an atmosphere there.
So
A lot of
Mars
reasons
lends
why
itself better to
Mars
colonization.
makes more sense than the moon, but
Could we put people permanently on the moon?
I think so.
In
I
that-
think you
I mean,
could,
in the same way we have a space station.
yeah, I think you just build
Build
a
structures.
structure on the moon and
Interesting. Have you heard of plans or intentions to do this?
a little bit.
Okay. Well, what would be the
Yeah.
what would we get out of that? What would be the benefit of having a station permanently manned on the moon?
Other than being really cool.
That's so cool.
I mean, I think if you're on the moon and you have like a continuous line of sight to Earth, that would be good for doing Earth observation. And
Okay. It also seems like whenever we do something, we have these unexpected discoveries, like the space pen, right? The zero gravity space pen.
better than the pencil.
But seriously though, there are a lot of discoveries we come up with through
Sure.
space exploration that
Sure.
that weren't even anticipated, that weren't objectives.
Yeah, I mean that's to me maybe one of the most exciting things about going to space and doing stuff is everything you learn from
Right.
doing experiments in zero gravity or not zero gravity but simulated zero gravity.
Right. So the last time that a person went to the moon, it was the U.S. was leading in technological capability, but technology's changed a lot around the world, and certainly other countries are close, if not already totally capable of this. Do you see sort of a national competition for moon territory? I mean, is there interest from competing national interests for moon exploration?
I don't know if there is, but I imagine there would be, right? Like
Right.
I think China is going to go to the moon, and
I would assume so. I mean, because it's also a national status symbol.
Sure.
I mean, even back,
Yeah.
decades ago, it was a real U.S.-Russia thing. It actually was part of the Cold War. The U.S. getting there before Russia, and that was a bit of a,
Yeah, I think if another country went and said, "Hey, we're going to go and own the moon now," and the U.S. would be like, "Well,
Wait.
our flag is there. We
Our
got there
flag.
first."
So-
But you haven't done anything in 40 years, then they could just
Right.
go there and
So it becomes a territory claim. Do you
Yeah.
see competition for actual ownership of parts or all of the moon? I guess you go for the whole thing if you could, right?
yeah,
If you're
maybe.
willing to invest in what it would take to stake that claim. I could see China or Russia or the U.S. doing that
Yeah,
out of
I mean,
national.
make it like the next continent, right?
Can you imagine more space stations or more non-planetary inhabited, structures? Or is there just not a need for it? Or is it is it hard to justify the cost?
No, I can imagine, and like I said, I think it's already happening, right? I think that the Bigelow aerospace module that's already been designed, and I think they're already talking about a replacement for the International Space Station.
Oh, are they? I didn't realize. Okay. So with virtual reality and augmented reality gaining speed and gaining capabilities, how do you see that affecting space travel? You recently took a position at DACRI, which is one of the leading augmented reality companies.
Yeah.
So you have a good understanding of the space. How does VR, AR change the space exploration game?
I think it enhances it. I think it's an awesome complementary technology, right? I can see augmented reality headsets for on visors for astronaut spacesuits. Or
Okay, so you see the astronauts
Yeah, I see the
equipped
astronauts
this way.
using it, or maybe in the space station, or in the Dragon capsule, any capsule. Basically, just would enable freeing up the astronauts' hands, right, so that they can get the information that they need without having to look at a phone or a piece of paper or something. If you could just project all the information that you need without having to look somewhere else for it, I think that just minimizes your opportunity for error and minimizes the mistakes that could happen. I see.
Makes data more available.
It makes data more available, makes it more efficient and quicker and easier to have the information that you need. And also, there's a ton of applications, right? Just imagine I'm looking at something and you're trying to explain to me, oh, look at the knob that's fifth from the left, and I have to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Instead, if I could, through my headset, if it could project something and you see that, and then you highlight, the exact knob in a red color, and then I see, oh, that's the one, and then I go and turn it. I mean, just
right. In fact, I recently interviewed Daniel Liu from NASA, who's doing developing technology using these headsets for similar things. Can you envision a day where the virtual reality is so good that it reduces, even eliminates in some ways, but reduces the need for humans to go into space? Meaning Mars rovers will 3D model the surface, and you can have very visceral, real experiences in a VR headset on Earth as if you were on Mars. I mean, could you see this actually affecting the need to put people in places like that, or the space station?
To some degree. I mean, if you can send a robot there instead of sending a human.
So a robot avatar.
Yeah.
So you would control that, but see as if you were there.
Yeah, I mean, I can certainly see that. I'm sure there's nothing really that can replace actually having a human there.
So you can imagine for a space station where you could build the space station to react to virtual triggers, so you can reach up and hit a switch, and that switch would, in the space station, happen.
Oh, yeah.
But on Mars, it's not as controllable as a space station.
Yeah. It's interesting. I mean, it's exciting. There's so much happening.
It's just hard to predict.
I can't wait to
so much is
to
happening
see what
so
happens.
fast.
Yeah.
What's amazing about it is how close these forecasts are. We grew up with science fiction called Space 1999 and 2001 Space Odyssey. And that was how long ago? And that didn't even come close to happening.
Yeah.
But now we're talking about 10, 15, 20, 30 years.
Oh, yeah.
Stuff that we had sort of felt like we were giving up on in a way. It's like,
oh, I mean, the rate is just increasing exponentially. I mean, I think SpaceX is launching the third rocket in 9 days.
Okay.
Like in a couple days' time, that's going to be 3 rockets in 9 days.
Oh, I didn't know a third one was scheduled.
Yeah.
They did 2 in 48 hours.
Which is like
perfectly successful.
Just insane how rapid that is. I mean, I remember talking about Elon said he wants to launch once a week, and everyone was kind of like, no ways.
Yeah.
Because it was.
These are full reusable, the rocket thrusters land vertically, perfectly.
Yep.
I mean, very complex operations.
Oh, yeah.
Incredible. Well, I really appreciate your sharing your perspective. I just love this stuff. And you had an insight that few have had, so it's great to hear what that experience was like.
Cool. Thank you very much.
Awesome. Is there anywhere that people can follow what you're up to? Do you do social media or?
Twitter.
You're on Twitter? What's your Twitter handle?
Ziggy Fro. ZIGGYFRO.
Okay, we'll link to that below.
Yeah, go on that and make me viral.
Awesome.
Make me go viral.
It's going to happen.
All
Great.
right,
Well,
thanks,
thank
man.
you so much, Daniel. And thank you guys for watching. If you have any thoughts or questions, leave them in the comments below. If you're interested in this kind of conversation, hit the subscribe button. And until next time, thank you.